So first of all, we need to learn where things are in InDesign. I'm going to walk you through all the parts of the user interface and how you can customize certain things. All the Adobe Cloud products are highly customizable, which can help you to make these applications set up in a way that they are aimed at specific workloads. But we start talking about the customization. Let's just take a look at different sections or areas of user interface. So first of all, we have all the menus on the top, and in these menus you'll find all the options available. But these options can also be found in panels here, which you'll find right side. Now each one of these panels have individual options from the panels menu, and the default panels that you get here can be extended by adding more panels from the Windows menu. You'll see that in InDesign we have so many panels that they need to be organized into groups. So for example, on types tables you'll find this character panel. Once I select, it comes up like a floating panel, but this can be easily docked by clicking and dragging all the way right in here on the right hand side. As I dock it here, you'll see the blue line here. Let's just take it back here. Okay, so I'll just click here and it will be docked like so. I click and drag and you'll see that blue line here, and it can be placed here and can be worked out like so. And I have another column with these double arrows. I can just uh, expand this double column. Let's just put this back. Yeah. Okay, so this is another column here, and I can show or hide this particular column by this double arrows. So don't forget, you can find all the panels in Windows menu. If you ever miss and something, you'll have a look here, then you can open it while we are talking about them. Let's just show you how to prefer to set up my panels in InDesign. So I'd like to have the panels pages panel always open like this. Open like this pages panel. I don't need the character panel, so I'll just go in here, floating menu, and can just click and drag and close there. Okay, so all I do is simply drag and go far right edge until it gets long. You can just increase and decrease the size of this. Now I can reduce its size like that, or if I prefer to see more pages, then I'll just simply right click anywhere next to the pages and choose view pages horizontally, and it will be arranged horizontally. So instead of vertically, if you set horizontally, you'll see more pages, and depending on your screen you might be able to show even more of them. And in case of this workbook, you have 46 pages, and because I have made my pages panel big enough, I can actually see through all the pages like so. If your screen size is smaller or screen's resolution is smaller, you can change the size of thumbnails. Now, once you right click here within the pages panel, or the pages right click here, you have panel options here. So you'll find the panel options in here. And that's again, you can set something, choose here the page size, small, extra small, large, extra large, or jumbo. I prefer to see them bigger, so I can also go up to all the ways to jumbo size. So let me just check and give okay, jumbo, okay. Oh, they're way too big right now. So I'll just go back to my regular size. That is the medium. Okay, this seems to be fine, working out for me right now. So they're going to be from the Windows menu here. Let me show you just other ways to prefer to have panels I have in my InDesign. Just go to the Windows menu. From here under styles, I have these Paragraph styles and character styles always available. I'm going to drop them in here. I'm also going to bring the character panel out and close it, so they're both together anyway. I don't need to be visible here on the right, because whatever I select the text to use from the type tool from the toolbar. I'm going to get the most of these options that I get from the character panel up here in the options bar. Go to the text tool, and there you have the options there here. I don't have options there. And since this classic would show me up that option here. This is the toolbar I was looking for. I think that is called control bar. Yeah, that's more of a control bar. I'll just go back to my workspace. You can see the workspace from here. Windows, workspace, and these are different kinds of workspace. I was on Essentials. Essentials kind of is the new one. You can go back to Essentials Classic, but I want the control also. So it will show up with these options. Whatever tool you select is going to show up with the control here. Let's say I choose this move tool, direct selection tool, and it comes up with this fill option and 1-point stroke and this outline. Let's say this, I select this page tool, and it's going to come up with the page size and all that stuff. Now, also I can set up a new kind of workspace depending on here. I'm going in here, workspace, and I can create a new workspace here. Or I could just go here and give new workspace. So currently I have made some kind of workspace. I can just go ahead and click and give new workspace and name it, and that will be saved as my new workspace. Let's say I'm going to just click here and give in my workspace. This is cut it short, my WS, and give OK. So I have this my workspace saved here, and if you check in here, workspace, my workspace is activated. And you can also go back to delete workspace. You can also delete it and edit it, rename it, and whatever you want. Yeah. Now menu customization. Going to menu customization. That we can even hide certain features from the menu. I wouldn't recommend that because you might forget that it's hidden, or maybe someone else is coming and they're going to look for a feature and maybe they cannot find the option in the menus. But if you like to try out, you can go through edit and go to menus. You'll be able to find all these options here. You can switch off the visibility. Let's just say I switch off the open here. It will be gone. So yeah, a bunch of options here. You can go through all these and disable or enable according to your requirement. And of course, these will be saved with the workspace switcher. I'm just going to cancel out this, and instead I'm going to show you that I almost always use to customize some similar to panels. They are the shortcuts. I'm going to go to the keyboard shortcuts. You can save a lot of time. It's worth learning the default shortcuts, but you can also customize them. So if I go to edit menu and I choose keyboard shortcuts, and normally one of these things, close, is by default Control W and also Control F4. Let's go ahead and check out the undo here. There's the undo option here, file menu, edit menu. Let's just go to undo. Let's go to product area. Edit menu, let's find where is the undo here. It's yeah, here we have the undo. By default it is Control Z, and I can have two shortcuts here. Let's just say I want a new shortcut as F1. I can assign a new shortcut. Cannot modify default sets. New base, yes. All copy. Okay, so I have now two shortcuts for Control Z, that is undo command. Let's just go and check here, undo here. So I have two shortcuts. F1 is my custom keyboard shortcuts, and the cool thing about the InDesign that it's actually available on multiple shortcuts for same features. So if I press Ctrl Z by accident, then let's say I forget what I have another shortcut with, it will still work. It will also work with the customized version. I will be able to keep adding new shortcuts easily and have multiple shortcuts for same action. Now it's a brilliant feature. So I use F1 for undo and F2 for redo. So let me show you well as well now. These commands might be easy, but Shift Command Z is kind of a long shortcut. Where is it? Redo, E, F, G, Q, R, P, Q, R, S, redo. So let's just assign here new shortcut F2 and assign here. I have given a new shortcut because the redoing is not really convenient shortcut using 3 keys instead of just simply pressing F2. And there's a couple of other shortcuts as well I will recommend as we go along, and I'll explain the new features. You'll see me showing some custom shortcuts, but now you have to exactly know where to exactly set them up. So let me just get out of this menu and show you where you can find preferences. Just give OK, and you'll find this under edit menu all the way through bottom. There you have your preferences. You can use the shortcut Ctrl K and you can activate the preferences panel. This will open up the general preferences. And one of the things I wanted to show you under the interface that you can actually change the color of theme of InDesign. Let me just show you how it used to look in previous version, and this is how it was in previous version. And I find it's a little bit too bright, especially switching them from dark interface. Just keep it dark, medium dark, because it's easier on the eye. Plus, normally when we work, printer in wet white background, and the paper color darker background just isolates the better work area or the document window that we have in the middle from the actual interface. If you want, you can even go darker. So you can choose the completely dark interface, which is kind of cool looking. And I'll just stick to the default Adobe color. And while we're here in the interface settings, I would also like to show another useful option that is called live screen drawing here. If you set it to immediate, you'll see a lot of things in InDesign will be automatically changed while you are changing them, instead of you have to wait for an update to be visible. It's the only disadvantage of setting this to immediate is that your computer might struggle sometimes to give you a live feedback of the changes that you're doing. So try it out, and if it slows down your computer, then might be changing it to delay is a good option. Here's something I like to change already in the beginning before I do anything. Of course, InDesign is going to remember your settings, and if you want to make sure that a setting within preferences is going to be your consistent throughout all your documents, best thing is to do is close every document so you have nothing open, and then go to preferences and make a change, because if you don't have anything open, then it will definitely 100% becomes a default setting. Otherwise, some features might only be changed for a currently selected document. It is also an important thing to remember about InDesign. I'm just going to quickly OK. Now I'm going to show this live screen drawing option. Plus, under the units and increments and preferences, here units increments, I can change what kind of measurement I want here. So if you prefer to change that again, remember you can go through preferences and then you can change that from section as well. We'll talk about measurements later on once we start creating things, but I thought it's a useful point to point out right now. Dozens of my hundreds of people can customize using this. So once again, switch back to page number here. Double clicking on the thumbnail, I'll get the page. I can switch between pages. Double click here, double click here. Switching between pages is easy here. Now pressing W can switch between two different views: normal view, which we are currently in now, and a preview mode. So when you're in a preview mode, you'll see things that will actually be printed, while in normal view you can see all these bounding boxes. This is a normal view, bounding boxes that shows each of the object in the page. These are the text frames, images, and all that stuff. This can help you identify certain aspects, like something being locked will have certainly a padlock next to it. It's locked. Let's say this is a it's currently locked. Something that is locked will have a padlock next to it. Say I'll just lock this one, lock, and there it is a locked option here. So go to back to table object and unlock all on spread. Now it's unlocked. So preview mode will have its limitation, but it's great for reviewing and checking how your page layout is going to look in print. So remember, W is a useful shortcut. And let's just go through the couple of additional features so that we will be able to use navigate the InDesign within the documents as well. I'll just press Ctrl+0 to fit to screen right now. So we can use the pages panel to navigate in a document just by simply double clicking on a page. There is a way of getting around, but there's also another very useful shortcut, that is Ctrl+J, which is go to page, and it opens up the dialog box. Ctrl+J would open up this dialog box, and here you can simply type in, let's say, page number 10, and that will take you to page number 10. Or you could just use this drop down as well, whichever number you can select from here. Another way is just remember the shortcut as a jump to page, so J is for jump. It's a bit easier to remember it that way. So if I click OK, you can see that we're on page number 10. I just like to point out that if you just simply click once on a page thumbnail, it will only highlight the page. But it takes 2 clicks to actually take you there. So remember, double click is going to help you to navigate. Double click, or using Ctrl+J to quickly jump to page, or you can also find the pages here at the bottom left here. You can toggle between the pages through the documents, 1, 2, 3, or you could just spread these out, and you can find the last spread option here. This first page and the last page of the spread. You can also use the shortcuts to move between the pages, that is function Alt, up and down arrow keys will navigate the pages. If you have page up and page down buttons, all that you have to press is Alt, and then page up or page down will also navigate. Once again, you'll need a function if you have a smaller keyboard. Again, it's Alt page up and page down. Alt page up and page down. So make sure that the pages will always maintain centered on your screen, so you won't end up seeing something in between two pages here. And of course, the scroll is right here. You can scroll the pages up and down. You can even scroll on the mouse. But I would recommend to get used to this because it gets a little bit difficult to see what's happening if you're showing something to someone else. It would be really hard to follow and see what's happening on the screen. So useful shortcut if you end up messing up your screen like this, then Control 0 and you'll fit to screen. And then remember to use the page up or page down with Alt key, or use Pages panel, or use icons at the bottom, or Control J to jump to a specific page in a document. Now if you're presenting your work to someone, there's an even better way of going through a document. There's called a presentation view, something called presentation view, which you can access from here. Long press here, here, preview, long press here, and there you have a shortcut, Shift W. You can actually find this view from here and click. And now I am in presentation view. I can simply use my left and right arrow keys to go through the presentation. And if you want to escape or get out of presentation, just simply press escape on the keyboard. Now if you want to zoom closer to the page, all you have to do is hold Control plus, or Control plus to zoom in, or Control minus to zoom out. Notice if I hold Control plus, it will zoom at the center of the page. But if I select something, let's say an image here, now I press Control plus, then it will zoom in with respect to that selection. So when you have something selected, the zoom is automatically going to center to that area. If nothing is selected, it will probably zoom to the center of the page. And if you had paid page fit to your screen previously, which you are zoomed closer onto the page, you can press hold spacebar, which will automatically switch to hand tool, and then you can click and drag, move around within the page. So that the hand tool and holding down the spacebar always gives you quick access to it. Sometimes if you close, sometimes if you zoom in really close, you will like to move a little bit faster. Then press and holding space. You can also press and hold the H key, and if you click and hold a little bit longer, let's H, just here, H, and hold press here, then this comes up. We call this a bird's eye view, with which we can reposition anywhere around the screen, and it will automatically zoom back when I release the button to the previous zoom percentage. So it's something you could use when you're working on a large format print and have lots of details around the canvas. Then this can be a very handy useful tool to go quickly back and forth between close-up and total full view of the whole page. And let me just mention one thing about navigation. We remember how we use the spacebar to navigate around the pans within the document, which works perfectly fine until you have text selected. Now if you jump to page number 31, let's just double click here. Double click, and there we are. Now, yeah, so I've selected this text. I can double click on this text frame, which you already see there is a cursor within this box. Now I'll be able to select the text, or I can start typing. But more importantly, if I zoom closer, let's say in that area, now if I want to move around without losing control over editing, I can use, instead of spacebar, you have to use Alt key to get hand tool and be able to move around, because spacebar while you're typing is just adding more spaces. So just remember that normally it is the spacebar. In case you are typing, Alt key for panning around. But this is all you need. Like, let's just zoom in, hold Alt, there. You can pan around like so. Space would give you just space, so remember that. I'm going to just give Control Z to get back. That's all you need to know in the beginning about navigating around InDesign documents. Now we talked about all features you need to know about navigation and finding your way around a document in InDesign. So when you create a first document in InDesign, it might look a little bit intimidating. Control 0 here. Okay. Because you have so many options like this. I created this page in the workbook to explain where you can find important features, and hopefully this will help you to get to know this dialog box a bit better. So before I actually go into and open a file or new document, let me just walk you through here highlighted features. So one of the things is you can do in InDesign is to save as a preset for new documents, and that's just makes things easier to reuse the same settings in the future. And once you have your settings added, you just have to click on this icon here to save it as a document preset, and you'll find another important feature just under here. It's called facing pages. When it's turned on, it means you'll get spreads in the document like this. So you will have a spine in the middle, and you will have the pages on the left and right. Or if you have the page facing pages turned off, then it means your document will have single pages like this. So they will come one after another. There won't be any left or right side there. The primary text frame option is something we'll be discussing later. This is useful if you want to import a large amount of text, like from 100 pages long Word file. Would be best used with the primary text frame option, but we'll explore this later. What's more important when you start a new document is to decide whether you want it to set as a portrait or landscape. Our current document is landscape, but these two icons can easily change that for you. And I'll walk you through the rest of the options here once we actually start creating the document. But before I go there, I'll explain what does this bleed and slug mean. So here at the bottom, you'll find the additional options here. And bleed is a simple term which we use in print. And it is used to create a perfect printed edge. So you can see here an example how the bleed would look like. So if you apply bleed, let's say 3 millimeter, which is a standard print bleed size, this is what you will get in print. You'll see the crop marks here or whatever, and falls in that area. Whatever falls in this area will be cut out, and the final output would look like this. So because it's impossible to print something all the way to the edge and make it perfect, in prints we have to cut or trim the edges down, and that's what we use the bleed for. So here you can see again that the trim is happening here. Anything beyond that is a bleed zone or bleed region, and slug is used for additional space outside bleed, which is again going to be trimmed off, and that's useful area for adding information for printers for things like fold marks, registration marks, and additional instructions. So these things might be difficult to imagine how they actually work, but let me just show you an example, and obviously we'll come back to most of these and later on this course. From now, you should go to the file menu, choose new document, and you can use the shortcut Control N for the future if you want to get this option faster. And at this point, I'm depending on the version of InDesign you're using, you will see slightly different options. In Creative Cloud, you have a new look here. And in previous versions like CS6, it will look slightly different. So the screenshot in this workbook here is actually the way you will see the CS6. And this is how you will see something that is in CC. I intentionally had both just in case you are not up to date to the latest version. So that way you will be familiar with both the views, but to be honest, it's exactly the same settings with the both versions. So it's just organized slightly differently. So remember we had facing pages here. That's what we can find here, and notice, so when I change this and remove that, and it changes. I'll just change this to okay. So when you change this changes from inside to outside. That's because once you have facing pages on, it means you have a spread, and then the margins will be either inside near the spine where the two pages are joined, or at the edges of your spread. And margins are useful against safe zone areas near the edge of the page where you're not supposed to put too much information apart from the page numbers and blocks of colors. But generally the body copy and images are usually staying in center away from the margin area. Notice that you can assign the number of pages here. So let's say I have a 5-page document. I can change the size and orientation here. Here's the size and here's the orientation. Also, I can find the standard size for prints, web, and mobile. And in Creative Cloud, you can even have templates you can start working from, which are very useful. I highly recommend those to check out, and if you're not done it already. Plus, if you can also find more presets if you use the little plus sign here. At this point, it is worth mentioning that this is what it used to be called, the document indent, or just simply intent. Now we just have to toggle this here from top, which we can switch options. Usually referred for print and the design application, or page layout for print application. But you can also see it is used for mobile and web design as well, because it's an essential tool for digital publications as well and offers a lot of interactive features for PDFs and ebooks. Once again, this is something we can talk about later. If I set up something, let's say I'm going to go to print A4 size, and I'll change this to mm. Orientation to portrait, and maybe reducing the margin down to 10 millimeter. The margin is going to be 10 millimeter, just reduce down to 10 millimeter. Plus I'm going to add a bleed to make that 3 millimeter, 3 mm of bleed. So if I want this to be saved, I can just type in here preset details, my A4 settings, A4. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna have 5 pages here. Okay. So click on this and save document presets, my A4, save preset, and there I have my A4 here. And we're storing this template, which can be it will be there in the saved tab, and I can access in just one click. I'll just click here and all the settings will come up here in just one click. So if I go back to print and have something else selected, like letter, you can see all the options go back to default options like a letter. But if I go to save and have these ones selected, then I'll just come back with these settings right away. It was on millimeters, yeah. Now, if you ever need to delete a preset, just simply you can use this trash can. But to see how this document looks like, I can click on create, and we can have our new fresh empty document here. Notice that our 5 pages are actually added as a single page first, which is the cover, and then we have the page number 2, 3, 4, and 5 joined together in spreads. Let's go to first page. Okay. If I zoom out with control minus all the way, I can see all the pages laid down like so. I can press control 0, so I can zoom back closer. I can see my margins presented with purple lines. The red line is representing the bleed area. The actual trim line is the black line here on the left and on the top. And this is the spine in the middle. Now, if I want to expand my document, add new pages, all I need to do is come down to the pages panel and here also choose create new page. I can add one by one new page, just one click, and there you see there is one more page, page number 6 added right there. Now if I hold down Alt key and then click here, it'll come up with this dialog box. I can type in exactly how many pages I need. Let's say I type in 5 pages, and I can even decide exactly where I want to place this: after, before, at the start of document, at the end of document. And then I can even choose what master I want to use to read them. Now master pages are something that we are going to talk in later. Now for now, just click OK. As you can see, all these pages have been created. Now, how can you make changes to settings used in the new document dialog box? You can do these changes in 2 different places. One you will find under the file menu. Go to file menu, document setup. You'll find here the global settings like page size, orientation. Also, you want facing pages or not, or single pages. It's just something you can turn off later on, and even intent can be changed here, which would affect the measurements right here. But you can also find here bleed and slug options here. At this point, you could even have the preview on so you can see the changes going on. So let's just say I'll just change the bleed size here. I just use the arrow keys, increase the bleed size. Here you can see it changing up. Let's just go back to 3 mm where we were. So because dialog box is a global setting, it will affect all the pages. Now, while you want to make changes to margins and maybe add columns and guides to your pages, that is something you will do in the page level. So it depends on what you have selected. Let's say if I've selected my cover page, and just give cancel to that. Say I've selected the first page. Now I can go to the layout menu, and there I can find margins and columns. Here, if I increase the number of columns, let's just say 1, 2, whatever, maybe 3 columns, then you can already see showing up in the background. The preview option is on, so that is why you see that already. And click OK to accept the change. But notice that other pages do not have any update with respect to the columns. Columns and margin will only affect the currently selected page. But if you want to make sure that all your pages are affected by the columns and margins options, you have to first select all of them. So click first page, then hold shift and click on the last page. So all of these are highlighted, means they are all selected. I'm just going out to zoom out a little bit. And now I'm going to go to the layout menu, margins and columns. Now I can decide how many columns I need. Let's just increase the number here. Let's just say 2 here. So now it is going to change throughout the document. Let's say 2 columns and margins. Globally, it has been made a change when I've entered the number 2 here. So remember that the options you find in the File New dialog box are divided once you have the document ready. And to be able to make changes to them, you will have to go through File, Document Setup, and the other half you will have to find under Layout menu, Margins and Columns. And one last thing I want to mention is when you have multiple documents open in InDesign, you'll be able to switch between them using document tabs. So this is your workbook. Here I'll just create between here, there, and there. But InDesign will always ask whether you want to save it or not. When you want to close it, you can just click here. It'll ask in case you want to save this or not. Every time you give a close option here. If you give yes, you have three options here, like InDesign 2022, because my version is 2022 CC, and it has INDD file format. It is the default file format for your working files, but you can also choose another option called template here. And IDML is a way of saving your InDesign file into a backwards compatible version, which will be opening in also in previous versions like CS6, CS5, or even CS4. But you won't be able to make it backward compatible to all the versions like that. So that's the oldest one you can go back to from Creative Cloud. So this is IDML, is a special version of an InDesign file. It is called InDesign Markup Language file, but for now I'm going to stick to the default option and then press save, and the document will be closed. And I know that it saves. Next time I open it, I can go to the File menu, choose Open Recent, and here I have my A4 document here, right here. So that's about it for creating new documents. And of course, we'll explore more options and see everything in depth later. Now let's take a look at the preferences. I want to return to them because there's a few more things that's worth mentioning already in the beginning while we're getting to know the InDesign. So one of these features is called display performance, because you will have loads of images in InDesign and you will need to manage how InDesign is going to represent these images. So you can set the quality of them, and this just helps your computer to process everything that you do in your documents and allow quick edits even in documents with hundreds of pages and maybe even thousands of images. Just think about it in Photoshop. You probably open an image and you work on it. Maybe you have a few layers, but that's just a few images. While in InDesign, you might have a document open with hundreds or thousands of images. All those images will need to be loaded into memory, and depending on the setting display performance, you have either a very fast and smooth way of working with the document, or depending on your speed of the machine, you might find it really difficult to move between pages or even move frames around. So by default, the display performance is set to typical quality. Now, let's just click to high quality. Notice that there's a slight shift in the image here. I'll just zoom in a bit closer and this is the high. Now, just observe how it will change while I change it to typical quality. Typical quality. See, there is a little bit of a reduction in the quality. But if I go in and choose fast quality, say fast quality, then I simply just get a block like an empty rectangle. So none of these images will actually show in this case. You might be wondering like, what is the point if you can't see the image? But once you have placed the image, you might not need to see the images. You just know that image is there, and you would only switch if you really want to see it. And remember the shortcut Shift W, even though your display performance is set not to show images. When you go to presentation view, that is Shift W, the image will automatically appear. Because in the presentation view, you're not going to pan around and move around. It just simply allows you to switch between pages, and it's a little bit easier for InDesign to process the switch and present all the images that you have on your pages. So it is definitely worth looking at this option, especially when you're working with larger files in InDesign. But I would suggest that if your computer can handle it, then you can use high quality display option. Now, if you go into edit menu and preferences, I can show same option, display performance, where you can even tweak additional features. Let's go here, display performance here. You have additional features like what will happen to raster images, vector graphics, and transparency when you are panning around. And changing your view, you can fine tune this so you can decide whatever you want. So let's say I want a higher resolution or proxy that is somewhere between low quality, and the gray out will just take that out and make a completely gray block there. So instead of this image itself, it will show you a gray block. Let's just click OK, and I'll show. There, you see the change here, and that's a gray block. There's another interesting feature that is called Greek type. Let's just go back to preferences, and in general you can use the shortcut Control K as well. Now here in the preferences, display performance, here I have a Greek type. Let's bring this up to proxy, and yeah, you have Greek type below 7 point, which means that some text when you zoom out might not be visible below a certain size. Let's say I'll just keep it as 6 points, and I click OK. Now currently all the text is visible on the page, but when I zoom out, Control minus, let's just go further away. After at this point the text is not visible, and there you go. That's the Greeking option, and that turned the text into blocks. But if I go into preferences under Control K and display performance, let's just give it to a 12 point here. I'll double this unit and give OK. Now I'll zoom in, Control plus. Then when I zoom even closer, and it already turns into blocks when I zoom closer, and it becomes readable again. So it's again a feature that you can set up and you can fine tune it here. Actually, I prefer to keep it on 0 even though it is from a distance. Let's just go back here and display performance, keep it at 0. Even it is at a huge distance, I would like to see the text, and my computer can handle it. So it makes it easier for computer to process everything that you're doing in InDesign. Similarly, if we go back to the interface options, you have Greeking, and if I set by default to no Greeking, let's just go back to preferences and interface here. And by default it is on no Greeking. If I go all the back to left, hand tool means that when I use the spacebar or the hand tool and click around and drag around, I won't see text or images that are outside my screen area. You will only see them when I let it go. For example, let's go here and click OK. Now I'm holding space and I'm panning around. There you don't see anything, and you just see the blocks because they are not rendered. Now if I release them, if I just go out here and get back here, you see these text is not rendered, so that's why now if I let go, it will be rendered like so. While I'm moving around, if I go back to preferences and set all the way to up, interface, no greeting. Now I will always have a preview, which might not be the best, but I'll just go back and change the preferences of grayed out this display performance here. Okay, use defaults. This one 0. And the view here, display performance, typical display. Now, I hold space. If I go back here, as you can see, there is a difference in the color tone. It is not the best view, but when I release it, it comes back to its original quality. It will refine it, and it will also add the anti-alias on the text, and it will have a correct color version of the images. It's not good. It's good to know that even though you have a standard display performance preference in a document or for all your documents, you can still have object-based display performance option as well. So, for example, if I click on this image, right click here, and I can choose the display performance as fast display, and there I have my display as a block. Now, in case you don't see that, that's because you have to go to view menu, display performance, and this allow object level display settings is off. Now, just in case it's off, I will not be able to see, even though I have changed the display performance to whatever setting here. Let's just say high quality. It made no change there. Go to fast display, no change again. Just go back to view and display performance, allow object level display settings. There, it now takes an action here. Now, display performance, typical display, right click, now display performance, high quality display. There you see the change now working effectively. Now, one more thing that is in the preferences, that is the file handling. You can go Control K, and here I have an option called file handling. Here you have a couple of useful things, like the option whether you want to save preview images of your documents. That means if you want to preview them in other applications like Finder or Adobe Bridge, how many pages and what quality you want to be used for thumbnail images or preview images. So by default, I think it is 5 or 10. But you can even decide all the if you want all the pages. Here you can decide all the pages, and the way you don't even have to open the file like this. You can just flick around through all the pages and see them as preview. So the quality here again, you can decide how big you want them to be, and obviously the higher the size is, is going to give bigger, larger InDesign file. So all these things you can fine tune, and it's worth looking into rest of the settings as well. You can go through all of these. Most of them are quite self-explanatory, and for the tricky ones, we're going to return and explore them where it's worth mentioning them. But now, these are the preferences about the Adobe InDesign.